Welcome to the first video of 2023, and in this video, instead of talking about resolutions, I'm actually going to be talking about having a vision for your life. Hey there, I'm Alex. I'm a former 9-to-5er turned entrepreneur, and I'm here to help you get on your path to purpose and leave your 9-to-5. So this video is going to be split into 3 general parts. The first one being little nuggets of wisdom and things I've come across along the way that really helped shape my perspective as far as having a vision in your life. Part 2 will be my own experience with not having a life vision and how that got me off track in life. And then in part 3, I'll talk about how you can set your own vision for the next year and how you can change your life with that vision in the next year. So a vision is really different from a goal or a resolution because with your vision, you're taking a step back and you're really looking at your life from that 10,000-foot perspective. So a vision really asks you to look at your life and consider, where will you be a year from now? Will your life be intentional and well designed, or will you have kind of ridden the conveyor belt of life another year down the road? Because in a year from now, you're going to be somewhere. And you're going to be someone. But what a vision really asks you to evaluate is, who will you be? And where will your life be? What will you have accomplished, or what will you have done in a year from now? So one thing that Steve Harvey said in a motivational speech that really stuck with me, and I'm going to paraphrase it here for you, is you can't just get by in life. You can't just exist. You have to figure out how to live. And you have to take the jump to really live. And that really resonated with me because I feel like for much of the past 10 years of my life, I was kind of just existing. I didn't have a vision of where I wanted to go, and I wasn't living my life. I was just living the life that society kind of assigned to me, and I felt like I was living on autopilot. And so for me, really living means taking a look at your life and figuring out what's working and figuring out what isn't working and really starting to take the steps needed to achieve the life that you want to live. Not the life that you have been living, but really considering, okay, what really makes me happy? What makes me fulfilled? And am I doing that in my life, or do some things need to change? And without asking yourself these questions and developing a vision for the next year of your life, you're really just going to be stuck on the conveyor belt of life. And from my experience, when you're on the conveyor belt, you typically are taking the path of least resistance, or you're letting your life be guided by those around you. So the path of least resistance could look like the typical advice that you get, right? Like, go to school, get a job, buy a house, buy a car, get married, have kids, and you can kind of just go through the motions because that's just what's expected of you without really considering, is this what I want out of life? And this can also look like feeling like you need to achieve certain milestones by certain dates. Like you have to get married by a certain age without really considering, is this the path that my life is on? Is this where I'm at? Is this the phase that I'm in my life right now where I want to be doing these things? Or am I pursuing them because it's generally expected of me? And something that comes to mind as far as being on the conveyor belt and having other people dictate your life is when you're at work. And so if you don't have a vision for your life and say where you want your career to go, sometimes you can kind of have that be directed by those around you. Even if it's well-intentioned and well-meaning, they can kind of get you off track. So maybe you don't really know what you want your career to look like 5 years down the road, and your supervisor or your boss, very well-intentioned, says, hey, like, you're kind of good at doing X. What do you think about starting to work more in that area of your work? And so all of a sudden, this can kind of take you down a path without you knowing it that maybe you don't want to be going down. So then you could find yourself 5 years down the line on a path that you don't want to be on, just because 5 years ago you didn't have a vision for where you wanted your career to go. And so when someone just suggested something that sounded good to them based on, their perception of you and your skills and maybe what they think you should want to achieve in life, you went down a path that all of a sudden you aren't loving. And another really great nugget of wisdom that I came across, and it might have been in a Jim Rohn motivational speech, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that a lot of people use this phrase, and that is that we are taught what to think and not how to think. So when I heard this, it really resonated with me, and it got me thinking about my path in life and how you're kind of taught, in the sense of you're taught what to think, you're taught what success looks like, and you're taught what a good life looks like. And so I kind of mentioned this earlier, but you're taught that, success looks like getting good grades, getting a degree, getting a good job, and that's kind of the path in life that is supposed to make you happy, and that's what we're taught. And what we aren't taught is how to think. We aren't taught about how to evaluate our own lives and how to reflect on our own values and really determine what will make us happy in life. We aren't taught how to think about our lives. We're just taught what we should do for success. And so I'm definitely someone who has a lot of experience with not having a vision in life. I feel like I'm the biggest culprit here. Growing up, I was never really someone who questioned the status quo, and I actually really desired to fit in and to follow the perfect life path and to have the recognition and praise and just know and have that security that I was on track. And I had never really questioned that my life could look any different. And when I did think about my life looking different, I didn't like that. I wanted to be on track, on time, and doing the right things. And so I was the typical kind of good kid that was really good at doing what they're told and getting that positive feedback from the adults in my life. And so I did all the things like getting good grades, going to university, getting a degree, and getting a job, and so on. And I was so good at just riding the conveyor belt of life, especially the school system into the corporate job system. That is a very easy conveyor belt to ride. And I was so good at that, and I was so good at just doing what you're told that I didn't even know to think about what I need to do next. And so I have an example that kind of feels silly now to even talk about it, but looking back on it, that's just where I was at the time. And so the example here is that it didn't even occur to me in my last year of university that I would need to start looking for a job soon, until one of my close friends mentioned that they had started looking for a job, and it just dawned on me oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be doing next. I was just so used to doing whatever was told. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I have a degree in engineering, and so this degree, more than a lot of other degrees, is really regimented and really structured. And so you're really told, basically for the 4 years of my degree, I was told almost exactly what classes I was taking. We did have space for a couple electives, but the electives that we could choose from was a very small pool of electives. So basically, even into university, when a lot of people are kind of finding themselves and coming into their own, I was in a program that was very structured and told you exactly what classes to go to. And so I wasn't even having to make those decisions in university of what classes to take, because I was already told which classes to take in order to get my degree. And so after I graduated, I did manage to get an internship for the summer. And even as that internship was winding down, I didn't necessarily have a plan for what was next. And I was kind of looking for jobs, but hadn't quite found anything yet. And a coworker had happened to meet someone at a conference and had said, "Hey, Alex, I met someone, they might have a job opportunity for you. What do you think?" And because I didn't really have a vision, I didn't really have anything else going on, I just said, "Yeah, that sounds great." And so I ended up getting that job at the next company, but I had never really thought about, is this the type of company I want to work for? Do they do the work that I might be interested in? I hadn't thought about any of those things, and I just hopped into this job because I needed a job. And the last thing I'll say as far as my own experience, it happened actually shortly after I got the job I was just talking about. And I had sat down for coffee with one of the partners at the company. And one of the questions that they asked me, just as a like get to know you type of question, was, what is your 5-year plan? And at the time, I had no 5-year plan. I was just sort of, doing things as they came, and everything was working out for me, but I didn't really have my own vision for where I wanted my life to go. And at the time, I really kind of resented those 5-year plan questions or corporate exercises that you had to do every year because I never really had one. And so it wasn't until later in my career when things kind of started to level out a bit that I started to get a sense for what the road ahead would look like in my career. And I was starting to realize that I wasn't happy with the direction that it was going. And by level out, I mean when you're new in your career, and I was a what you call engineer in training. And so you're learning a lot on the job, you're doing a lot of different projects, and you're sort of just getting into everything in order to figure out what you want to kind of specialize in once you're a full-blown professional engineer. And so by level out, I mean I had kind of left that engineer in training phase and I was starting to be a full-blown engineer that was not taking direction from other people, but rather being responsible for my own work. And I wasn't really learning as much new stuff on the job. And so the kind of excitement or fun that comes with learning a lot and doing a lot of different projects had kind of started to taper away. And so I was starting to get my first real look at what my career would look like moving forward. And that's when I really started to realize that I wasn't exactly loving the direction that things were going. And that was the first time that I really had to start thinking about what I wanted in life, because I was sort of off the conveyor belt at this point and just thrown into the wild. So for engineering, I had kind of talked about how you're on the conveyor belt throughout your university degree, and then you kind of stay on that conveyor belt for the first 4 years of your career, because for 4 years you need to work as an engineer in training, where you're working kind of under the supervision of a senior engineer and you aren't unleashed on the public yet as your own kind of working entity. So at this time, I think I started to have almost a quarter life crisis, because for the first time in my life, I was sort of off the conveyor belt and having to figure things out on my own. And I was starting to realize that I just wasn't loving the direction that I was going, and I wasn't loving engineering anymore. And so the first kind of phase of figuring out your vision in life is definitely realizing what isn't working in your life and what you no longer want to pursue. And so once I knew what I didn't want to be doing anymore, which was I didn't want to stay in my current career and I didn't want to go back to school, and I knew that I wanted to start pursuing my own path and becoming an entrepreneur, then I had the whole task of, once I had the vision, of actually starting to execute on that vision. And that can take a couple years depending on your current financial situation and how different your current path is from where you want to go. With that, let's talk about how you can start to set your own vision for your life. So what you want to do is just have an honest conversation with yourself and really look at your life and say, what am I doing now? Where is my life heading now? And in a year, who will I be? What will I have accomplished? What will my life look like if I keep doing things the way that I'm doing them now? And then you have to ask yourself, am I happy with that future life vision? Am I happy with where I can see my life heading a year from now? And if the answer is yes, that's great, keep going. But if your answer is no, then you have to start thinking about, okay, who do I want to be in a year from now? What do I want my life to look like in a year from now? Where do I want to be? What do I want to have accomplished or done by that time next year? And if any of you were like me and you're feeling kind of burnt out or just tired and uninspired in your current career, then the thought of, setting a vision and having to put in the effort towards this other thing can be really daunting, and you may just feel like, I do not have energy to start, doing this whole professional development thing. And so if that's sounding like you, then I just encourage you to really think about your vision in kind of a realistic sense, especially if you're going to be doing this on your own without any sort of help or guidance from a mentor or a coach or someone like that. Then set a vision that isn't going to demotivate you or discourage you or kind of stress you out or even make you like scared or fearful. Don't set a vision so big that you just end up not pursuing it because you think it's going to be too much work or it's just kind of too scary to think about such a big vision. Really think about what vision will motivate you to get off the couch, but it won't overwhelm you. And if you're the type of person that feels that a 1-year vision or a 5-year vision feels way too rigid, then just keep in mind that a vision gives you a destination, but not the road to get there. And this is really about being flexible, but not aimless. So be flexible in your approach, and you're not necessarily going to dictate how or when you get there, but you know where you want to get eventually. And without a vision, you just kind of end up being aimless. And like I said, the conveyor belt of life can take you in places that you don't want to go. And if you're at this point in the video and you're thinking that you do want to try and set a vision for your life, make sure to check out my Ikigai video up here. A lot of the stuff that I talk about in that video and the general concept of Ikigai can really help you evaluate and consider what you want your life vision to look like. And so once you have your vision and you're ready to go, the next step is really to determine small habits that you can start incorporating into your life every day that you can do consistently and for the course of the year. So my best advice and what's worked in my life is choosing one habit that's both fun and easy to start doing consistently. That's the key. What can you do consistently that will then get you closer to your goal 1 year from now? What's worked best for me is to choose one habit, get that habit in place for like a week or two, and then if there's more things that you want to add those on progressively. So don't try and start 5 new habits all at once. I found that when I did this, I would eventually get overwhelmed or I would forget something, and then I would just get really discouraged because I felt like, oh, I wrecked the day because I didn't do my 5th habit that day. So what's worked best for me is just doing one at a time, give it 1 or 2 weeks or whatever feels really solid in your life, and then move on to adding the next thing. All right, so that's the video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it helped you shift your perspective and give you some good tips to set a vision for your life. Let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed it. I would love to hear back from you, and make sure to give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos, and I will see you in the next video.